Welcome to Walker Tea Review. I'm Jason Walker here with a pu'er tea to try. Now, a pu'er tea often can come in pressed form. That's probably the more common form. This particular one was a smaller cake. I've been able to actually kind of separate that cake into layers, the upper and lower halves here, and I'm going to break off some of that to put in my gaiwan. You want to whenever possible, you want to kind of pull that apart rather than snap it. The goal being to try to get intact leaves whenever possible. You want to get just a pinch more, kind of looking for looser leaves along the edge that might kind of pull off a little easier. That looks good. Water's been brought to a pre-boil, so it's not a full heavy boil, which means there's still some probably more oxygen in the water. At least that's the idea of using water just below a boiling point. So I'm going to set that in there. Actually, I should probably add just a splash more. Now, because this is a pressed cake pu'er, you often don't get the different characteristics that come out across different steepings, and pu'er is a tea that you can steep often several times. The first steeping is not going to necessarily represent everything that can be unlocked in this particular pu'er, or generally with many pressed cake pu'ers like this. But I'm going to go ahead and steep that and introduce this tea a little bit more. This is from Jalam Teas. This is their MengSong. It's a Sheng pu'er from spring 2012. Other information currently you can get a 10-gram sample, which is of course smaller than this, for $5. This tea is from the Menghai County, Sichuan-Bana region of Yunnan province in China. The Han people are the ones known for producing this particular MengSong cake. And this was harvested from areas of elevation of 6,200 to 7,800 feet or thereabouts. Now, I'm going to talk about this tea and get in more into the dry leaf, the wet leaf, and the liquor. What you see that I've done here this was of course packed more tightly, although it was not the most tightly pressed pu'er that I've ever come across. Probably one of the looser, one of the easier ones. And there are special pu'er knives, pu'er picks or blades that can be used to help break this up. I have a simple pocket knife that I find does just fine for me, but I was able to work into the edge of the cake and just kind of twist and work my way along until this was able to separate. Now, the advantage of having it separate like that is, depending on how the tea is blended or pressed, you may have teas from different harvests, maybe even not necessarily across seasons, but maybe different pluckings. So you may have some needles more in say one layer, more broader, larger leaves, and others. That's part of the kind of recipe that can happen with pu'ers. But this one, because you're able to kind of see the bottom, the top, and the inside, you see quite a lot of consistency in leaf size, in say amount of needles present. I want to give this a light smell. Remember, this is a 2012 spring, so this tea is in its pressed form hasn't been pressed that long actually. You get a light sweet hay kind of aroma, and some dried straw. There's a difference between hay and straw. So maybe some light chamomile, herby type of flower going on there as well. Looking at these leaves, you can tell that they are, like I said, greener leaves. You can tell that there are needles. There are some thicker, more mature leaves in there as well. But at a glance, the way they've been pressed together, you can't really tell how big those and just how mature, how much bigger those leaves are. So I'm going to set that to the side now and get over to the liquor here. I'm going to angle my Gaiwan lid over to the side. And there's some vacuum there, which meant there was a good seal that prevented air from getting into the Gaiwan, changing the color of the liquor as it was steeping, as it was exposed to air. But there's a fairly smooth pour. Get those last few drops out. Shake those drops out. And I'm going to now be able to look at the wet leaf here. Talk about that. Let me give that a shake. Let those leaves kind of settle back down. At this point, there's more of a beanie note. These are the beanie, toasty notes that I come across in some of your some Chinese greens that have been exposed maybe a little bit closer to the heat source. That's kind of what you get a little bit of here. So it gives that kind of green bean, lima bean type note. Underneath that, as this tea is cooled just a little bit, then you get a little bit more of that sweet hay note starting to arise. Now the sweeter, warmer, sweet earthy type elements, sweet herby type elements coming out as well. So I'm going to clear off my lid here and pull out a few of these leaves and leaf portions. You have some leaf portions like this that have some brown, some oxidation to them. So that's present. I kept noting the silvery color of needles or portions of needles. It may be pieces like that that are now more of a green type of color. Let me pull out. Here's a leaf that's mostly intact, hasn't completely unfurled, so I'm not going to try to tease that apart too much, other than to note there's some blotchy little specks of oxidation taking place there on that leaf. Let me pull out, here's an intact needle, say an inch or so in length. And what else? Leaf portions, wider pieces of leaf there. Not fairly delicate, not very old, not that old, not the oldest that I've seen, not the biggest leaf that I've seen either being used in this. So if I can get that to just kind of stick flat there, that will be good. Okay, that's pretty good. Now I'm going to set that to the side. Actually, see one more nice looking needle I'm going to put on there as well. Then leave that alone and get to the liquor here. Let me give that liquor a swirl. Hold it up to the light. Okay, a nice honey brown type of color. Looks good in the cup as well. Let me give that a sip. Gentle. With pu'ers that are this green, I have come across some that can be fairly intense in their astringency, some bitterness present, yet having pronounced green, hay, strawy type notes. The idea and what goes along with those kinds is often that, as this tea ages, that bitterness falls, the astringency falls, those flavors, those kind of mellow and round out, become more complex. So boldness in the beginning isn't necessarily negative. It's just those are the components that get put away for time and for aging. This particular tea, it's lighter in that astringency, although there is some. It's light. It's gentler in the bitterness. However, it's also lighter in those flavor aroma components too, which could make you wonder what's going to happen with this tea over time. Is it going to accumulate? Is it flavor aroma going to multiply, or do you have to start off with a certain amount that gets converted, or is there a certain amount that's also going to kind of convert and diminish through the aging process? You're getting, at this point, there's some of the kind of beany Chinese green type of element there, so that it's got a bit of that heat of the roasting or drying or firing processes there that stopped the oxidation in this green tea. So looking at this, it would be hard for me to say what's going to happen with this tea over time, because there's also some storing and some aging factors that can take place depending on how this tea gets put away and matures. As a tea itself to drink right now, again, one of the lighter, I'd almost use the word blander of the Sheng pu'ers. So it's gentler, it's more neutral. So I would give this one, it's hard to say, but just on what it is right now. Should also mention aftertastes before I say scoring. There's a bit of a light kind of green, having drunk a fresher green tea type of gentle sweetness, vegetable type sweetness in the back of my mouth, starting to build up a little bit. So that's positive. I should note that. Off-camera tastings, I was able to steep this tea more than once and kind of unlock the layers. I did not find that the first steeping may be a little bit weaker, and then as the tea leaves loosen up, it can release more. I did not find a significant exponential type increase in character across the steepings, so it stays pretty well within the range that I'm experiencing here. So having said all that as well, I would give this tea an 88. Again, some nice components. What's it going to do? Is this a good tea to store away? I leave that to you and to more expert hands, and also the consideration of what kind of storage conditions this tea might receive. So come back to Walker Tea Review to find out about teas as they are now, teas as they have potential as well.